I've got some absolutely insane news going on. I have found out a new way to record the content for Zealandism. I have no idea right now if this is better or worse. I'm assuming if you're seeing it, that means that it's better. But since I'm on the run so much, I figured it was probably time for me to figure out how to capture one of these in a way that, like, somebody would be able to see. It doesn't feel like 160p. It doesn't feel like the resolution that cavemen used to get when they were trying to tune in to those World Cup finals that Pelé played in, right? Like, you needed something better. You deserved something better. Because after all, the Zealandism channel already makes millions of dollars. So why wouldn't I be able to afford a halfway decent camera that would allow me to record these Zealandisms? And as funny as the meme was of me being 0 pixel Zealand, right? We needed to take a step into the modern age, as long as this is sounding acceptable enough. And I would imagine that it is sounding acceptable enough because you're watching it. And that means that it's, acceptable. Sorry, I bumped it and had to reset. But now that we are in the 21st century, I had to level up something else as well. I did get a haircut. They stole a lot of my hair, but we brought it in nice and tight. I believe the Turkish barber gave me a nice, like, blow dry and hairbrush, which is the last time that's going to happen for a while. Of course, you know how that works. We got to let, you got to let the lettuce roam free. I mean, as long as I still have any on top of my head, we're going to let it rock out. In the spirit of Noel and Liam of Oasis, we are going to try and work our way back to that bowl cut. I think I'd need 15 Turkish transplants to be able to get to that level of hair, but I'm perfectly happy not looking like I'm wearing a helmet all the time. But since we're in the northwest of England, or the west of England, or wherever you would consider Manchester and Liverpool, that is where I am right now, of course, for the Football Manager World Cup. And the other video today is going to be about the Football Manager World Cup, what to expect and how fun it might or might not be. I think it's going to be a blast, but there's some concerns I have about the competitive integrity and so on and so forth, right? But before we dive into that, I wanted to talk about something that is really amazing, right? Something that unites our two worlds, right? You may have noticed something that stands out a little bit. I am, in fact, American. Now, I know that sometimes can be a very bitter pill to swallow, right? I don't know how some of you manage to put up with the fact that an American is sitting here talking to you. But I've had the opportunity, obviously over the last couple of years to go to a couple of English league matches or whatever. But I actually managed to, and I realize this might be hard to believe, attend my first match in a separate Premier League stadium. Right now, I've been to a lot of matches, obviously of big and small variety, particularly big on the international side. But I had my first opportunity to go to a match in a Premier League stadium. I realize that sentence for some of you is going to be a shock. I will remind you the fact that United Trey went to his first Manchester United game like a year ago, and he's not American, as far as I can tell, right? So, it is not a particularly unusual thing. But in this process of going to this match, I made some observations. First of all, the fact that I think that a lot of fans realize this, particularly in Germany or wherever else. But you really do have something special when it comes to the way that the league sports work. I know that major leagues like the Premier League, Serie A, La Liga, whatever, that they are trying to work their way towards being more like the leagues in the United States, right? The leagues in the United States, whether it be NFL, whether it be NBA or NHL, they can be fantastic. They can have fantastic fan support. But there is a different feel to the club in terms of its just strict local connection. For example, the match I went to was a League Cup match. It was Everton against Doncaster. Okay, I mean, this was your classic first round League Cup match, big team against, team that's happy to be there, and their away fans are gassed, and it's like their first big old shot of the year. And it was fun to see one of those types of matches in person. We ran into some Doncaster fans in the train, right? They're chanting about how Everton hasn't won a trophy since 1995. They are completely and utterly fired up for that away day, which again, I remind you, away days as a concept are foreign to me. So this is the sort of experience where it is not a usual thing. Now, granted, these dudes were turbo fucked up. Like they were so drunk, and it was like a Tuesday, which mad respect, right? Maybe most the most sports where you have actual away fans in the United States are happening on weekends, and so it's perhaps a little more socially acceptable for those guys to be absolutely trashed, because trust me, they are. I'm not, it's not foreign to me to see a bunch of drunk sports fans. If it was, I'm watching in the great DPRK, and our dear leader Kim Jong-un, or whichever Kim Jong we happen to be on now, is smiling down upon us, and we give him 20 minutes of uninterrupted applause before the game can continue. No, I'm familiar with drunk fans, but the size, particularly the compact size of like the UK, prevents the opportunity to do away days even on a Tuesday where you can, I don't know, take a half day at work and then just get belligerently fucked up before going to the game. The Doncaster fans were loud. It was 0-0 in the first half, and Everton would go on to win 3-0. But the Americanization of sports, I feel like, is a danger that might actually ruin a lot of the great things in the Premier League, because I love American sports, right? I obviously grew up with them. Tampa Bay Lightning, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, season tickets. My dad has had season tickets to Tampa Bay Buccaneers for like 40 years. I grew up on that shit. It is in my vein. It's in my blood. I actually didn't even plan that, but I'm wearing the shirt. I wish I'd planned that. One day I will hope that I can learn how to become a YouTuber and actually map out stuff like this. But eventually, I want to actually land on a point in a sentence here, and I think I just did. But to expand on that, I don't think that it's bad what American sports has become, but I also don't think that all sports need to be like American sports. But there is a real danger they will attempt to become that, and the reason that there is a real danger they will attempt to become that is because the way that it's all set up in the Premier League and whatever does not allow for the same sort of money-grubbing behavior that does exist in the NFL, in the MLB, in the NBA, right? It's this competitor, like this competition to try and suck up every last dollar. Now, I'm happy with what the product is. There's no other American football league in the world, so I kind of just have to put up with it, right? But the Premier League, it felt almost weird to me, right? This idea where I'm watching Everton, right? If you've never been to Goodison Park, it is like in the middle of a neighborhood. And I know there's other stadiums that are in the middle of neighborhoods. I've been to them. I've filmed whole videos at them. I've been behind the scenes. I've spent days with clubs that their team, and their whole facility was in the middle of a neighborhood. Goodison Park doesn't get a lot of credit for this. It is Luton Town-esque, right? Like if you look at the Luton Town Stadium and then you look at Goodison Park, Goodison's obviously a little bigger, but to be perfectly honest, standing inside of it, I thought it could fit no more than 20,000, and yet apparently nearly 40,000 people can fit in there, as they kind of just went straight up a little bit. But there is a church attached to the wall at Goodison Park. I mean, you just don't see that in the United States. The only stadiums that are old enough to exist like that are baseball stadiums, right? Because they were built in the middle of whether it be the Yankees Stadium, whether it be the Chicago Cubs Stadium, whether it be the Boston Red Sox Stadium. These are teams that have existed for so long. Their stadiums were built in the same way that English clubs were, and they are in the middle of downtown. There is also the issue of cars, right? And in the United States, the vast majority of people drive to the match, right? Not to a train station that they then take into the match. They drive to the game, right? The tailgate, the famous American tailgate for NFL games, right? That it's usually in the bed of a truck, or a couple of people bring all of the shit in the back of their cars. The reason that tailgates happen in the U.S. and they don't happen anywhere else, or at least, regularly, is that the United States, everybody's parked their cars and you're just in the parking lot hanging out for hours before the game. I mean, that's where the tailgate happens, is in the parking lot before the game. And so you're not able to create the same kind of literally in the middle of town feel with these stadiums, because they're often in the middle of a giant open field that is full of cars, right? And then it takes an hour to get out of the parking lot after the game. It's a really great system that you totally should not adopt. Now, I'm not concerned that Everton's all of a sudden going to end up with a giant parking lot out front of their new stadium. They're not, right? It's close enough to downtown Liverpool that a lot of people would be able to walk in the first place. And there are a few stadiums, even in NFL, where there are a lot of people that are able to walk or take a train to the game, but it is the exception. I was just pointing out something that highlights this larger, at an Everton match, and they are far from alone in this. It felt like the community was on the field. In the NFL, it feels like the those guys that represent us are on the field, but they don't feel like us. Maybe because most of them are 6'5", 310 pounds and absolutely shredded with tattoos up to their neck, which, mad respect. I'm never going to have an 8-pack, but if I did, I would show it off in the same way. Brother, go get it. Right? But not being the only reason, there is a difference between feeling like they are one with us and, they are carrying the flag for us at this particular moment. Now, I realize the way the Premier League has been going, it is kind of teetering towards the latter, that there are eventually going to be more and more players that feel more and more disconnected from the club. But within that stadium, right, there was a feeling that it was all one and the same. And let me get further into this, because what really made me want to talk about this all in the first place is the difference in the game day experience. Right? I got lost in talking about the connection to community and trying to put that into words. But the difference in the game day experience is extreme. I was trying to explain it to Reese, who's the lead editor on the Main Zealand channel, what it's like to go to an NFL game, right? And the players are on the field an hour before the game, right? They're doing their last stretches. The kickers are practicing a few more field goals. There's the national anthem. There's the coin toss. There's like 5 minutes of like hype music while dudes are stretching or whatever. It feels like it takes an hour for the game to start. At this Everton game, and obviously at basically every other match I've ever been to, they walk out of the tunnel and within 5 minutes, we're playing. But there's no anthem. There's no musical performance, right? There's no prolonged, protracted period. The game just starts. And it starts right on time, right? And I understand, like, I want to be clear. I love both sports, right? I have American football in my blood, right? And I have loved soccer basically my entire life. Okay, and so I will. You won't catch me dissing either one, right? But I always live in a world where I have to deal with the counter arguments against both. So I'm saying the NFL is still fantastic. I know the rules are super prohibitive, but if you could ever find a way to overcome that, then you would enjoy the sport. But I understand where Premier League fans are coming from, or football fans more broadly are coming from, when they talk about, well, there's just so many pauses and commercial breaks or whatever, because a Premier League match is over in 2 hours. It's amazing. It's over so quickly, right? And I obviously I knew that, right? Like for anybody that comes in and is like, wow, this guy's never, like, I watch matches all the time, but that in-person experience, it's obviously different. The act of getting to the stadium, all this, an NFL game, if you're there in person, there's obviously a lot more downtime, right? There's the end of quarters. There's a halftime that is at least twice as long as the halftime in the match that we watched, even though it was obviously League Cup instead of Premier League, right? And there's cheerleaders, and there's like a musical guest at halftime, almost always. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, it's usually some washed up rock and roll musician who's performing on the pirate ship that we have inside the stadium, because, Buccaneers, pirates. Just all that sorts of stupid shit. There's so much more going on outside the game. I mean, the video board at Goodison Park is like a large iPad, right? They just strap 2 large iPads up. It's almost like the very limited amount of technology and advancement that has existed, it was begrudging. It was almost like they did it because they had to, but it's off to the side in a corner and nobody really pays attention to it, right? The voice, in NFL, for example, but in basically every major American sport, the PA announcer is like a big part of the experience. They're announcing all sorts of stuff. You barely hear from the PA announcer in the Premier League. It's much more, I shouldn't just say that, in its football ambiance more broadly, it's much more the natural ambiance, right? And there is a march to go the other direction because it's more entertainment and you want to try and engage in this and this and this and that and that and that. But I just wanted to let you know, right? This was more of I went to an Everton match at Goodison Park tonight. And again, it wasn't far from the first match like this I've ever been to, but it was the first Premier League stadium that I've ever been inside of and actually seen a match in. And that and all of the other matches I've been to have led to this kind of explanation that it is worth protecting, because I am aware that I am very lucky and I have the opportunity to experience both of these cultures in depth, and it is okay that they are different, and I don't think that it should change. So I will don the armor and I will don the shield and I will fight against halftime performers in the in the Premier League, because there's different rhythms to the sporting culture, to the game, right? There are different rhythms. And I think those different rhythms should be protected because it's what makes the entire sport special, and awesome. Both of them. Great. If I want to see Flo Rida perform on a pirate ship at halftime, that's very American. Let's do that. And if I want to see a bunch of drunk Doncaster fans storm their way onto a train chatting shit about Everton, right? And then listen to a bunch of drunk old men sing songs that are basically just the word Everton over and over again in a bunch of different ways. And if I want to be sitting directly behind a pole where I can't even see the action, but I can smell the history in the stadium, and 5 Academy players come in after Everton goes up 3-0, well, that is there too. And blessed be thy quickness, it'll be over in less than 2 hours, which is awesome. So there you go. My thesis is over.